Hello, you're watching the Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories from around the world. Let's take a look at the headlines. Protesting school staff end strike after reaching deal with US school board. Thousands take part in pro-democracy rallies in Bolivia. US carries out fresh airstrikes in Syria. Left parties in Turkey forms the political coalition. After 14 hours of non-stop negotiations, the Columbus City School Board and the Columbus Education Association, the CEA, representing protesting teachers, librarians, counselors, and other school employees, have reached an agreement regarding a new labor contract. The agreement was reached in the late hours of August 25, Thursday. It covers close to 4,500 teachers, librarians, nurses, counselors, psychologists, and other educational professionals employed by Columbus City Schools in the United States, state of Ohio. The CEA, in an update on its website, announced the agreement. It thanked the countless teachers, parents, community members, local businesses, and labor unions for their unwavering support. It noted the contributions and efforts of scores of parents, teachers, and others who participated in the three-day strike, which raised a number of critical issues and demands with the school board. Thousands of teachers went on a three-day strike on Monday, August 22. The strike was launched after members of the 4,500-strong union held a meeting on the previous day, which lasted more than 3 hours. In the meeting, over 94% of the members voted in favor of launching the strike and rejecting the school board's final offer at the time. The strike was the first in the city of Columbus since 1975, the largest school district in the state. It continued until Wednesday. It had tens of thousands of students asked to log into their classes remotely. The school board was forced to hire 600 substitute teachers to temporarily fill in for striking teachers and other staff. Among the demands that the striking teachers and staff put forward to the school boards were smaller classes, safe school buildings with adequate air conditioning and heating systems, a cap on the number of class periods during the school day, and a well-rounded curriculum with full-time art, music, and physical education teachers. They'd also been calling on the school board to raise the salaries of staff by a decent, sufficient level, taking into account rising inflation and cost of living. So far, the school board had offered a wage hike of only 3%, which fell way short of the current inflation rate of 9%. Details of the agreement signed yesterday were not available at the time of reporting. The CA said the agreement will be made public after an internal review and vote by members to ratify its clauses. Thousands of Bolivians on Thursday, August 25, marched in defense of democracy in several parts of the country. Simultaneous marches were started in the cities of La Paz and El Alto, which later joined up together. The marches were organized by the Unity Pact, or PU, an umbrella group of many trade unions, peasants' organizations, and indigenous rights groups, and the Centro Obrera Boliviana, COB. Hundreds and thousands of students, farmers, peasants, working-class people, and ordinary Bolivians took part in the marches in support of the ruling leftist MAS, or Movement Towards Socialism, party and the country's current leadership. They were joined in the marches by Bolivian President Luis Arce, Vice President David Choquehuanca, widely popular ex-President Evo Morales, as well as several other ruling party lawmakers and COB leader Juan Carlos Huarache. The marchers denounced the right-wing opposition's attempts to destabilize the government and imperil democracy in the country in the process. They further noted that capitalists and neoliberals have for long been trying to destabilize and overthrow pro-working class socialist and leftist governments all over the world to protect the wealth and monopolies of billionaire oligarchs and large private corporations. They resolved to continue their movement and struggle for political, social, and economic change in the country, and not to be defeated by the conspiracies being hatched by the right-wing opposition to undemocratically and unconstitutionally overthrow the government. Moving on to the third story, 4 fighters were killed and several US soldiers injured in air raids that the US carried out in Syria and subsequent retaliatory fire in the past 24 hours. The latest exchange of violence comes after the US said yesterday that it had carried out 2 airstrikes on an ammunition depot and other facilities in eastern Syria's Deir ez-Zor province, a strategically important oil-rich part of the country close to the border with Iraq. Following the US airstrikes, alleged Iran-linked groups fired rockets which landed inside the perimeter of mission support site Konoko in northern Syria and near mission support site Green Village, both being operated by the Syrian Democratic Forces, a US-backed Kurdish-led group. Reports stated that 2 US soldiers were taken for treatment for injuries, while 2 others suffered minor injuries and were under evaluation. In response, the US Central Command dispatched its forces equipped with AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, AC-130 gunships, and M777 artillery. The US said that its response ended up killing 4 militants, besides also destroying 7 rocket launchers. Meanwhile, Iran categorically rejected the accusation of it having any links with the so-called Iran-linked fighters. Iran's foreign ministry denounced the US attacks in Syria as a terrorist act by the US. It also called it a violation by the US Army of the people and infrastructures of Syria, amounting to a violation of the country's territorial integrity and independence. The US airstrikes and the fresh exchange of violence between the two sides also come at a time when the US and Iran, along with other world powers, are trying to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. The violence is raising fears that might result in failure to reinstate the deal. And finally, the left-wing forces in Turkey formed a new electoral alliance called the Union of Socialist Forces. The new alliance was formed under the auspices of the Communist Party of Turkey, TKP, the Revolutionary Movement, Devrim Haraket, the Left Party or Sol Party, and the Communist Movement of Turkey, TKH. In a recent press meet organized in Ankara, the Union of Socialist Forces announced its manifesto towards the 2023 general election. The Union of Socialist Forces has resolved to end the conservative regime in Turkey led by Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his right-wing Justice and Development AK party. The major agenda in the political program of the Union of the Socialist Forces include bringing an end to the rule of Islamists of AKP and Erdogan that they say serve the interests of the capitalists. The manifesto calls for the cessation of privatization of key sectors, the nationalization of all health, education, and social protection services. The Union of Socialist Forces wants to put an end to the actions of the imperialist monopolies, and the economy must be rethought according to the principle of planning, according to them. The Union has called for the withdrawal from NATO and the guarantee of Turkey's independence from the imperialist powers and the closure of the foreign bases in Turkey. The protection of the country's secularism and women's rights and equality of rights for ethnic, religious, and gender minorities is another agenda in the coalition's political program. And that's all we have for today's episode. For more such stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.